Welcome back. In a prior episode, I did a mini review on this lantern that I got for Christmas from my wife, and I mentioned that I would like to turn it into a red lantern because I have plenty of white light lanterns. I don't have any red ones. And when you do have dual colored lights, usually they go white first, then they go red. And I want something that's just exclusively red. And the reason is when I go camping, most of the time I go by myself, and I just end up sitting by the campfire, and you kind of develop night vision where very low levels of light you can see things very easily. And then you go ahead and pull out a lantern because you need to see something, a little bit in more detail, and bam, all of a sudden you get this blinding white light. And you can see what you're looking at fine, but then when you shut it, your night vision goes away, and it takes a while for it to build up. And when you use red light, you don't have that problem. And you can also keep your eye on stuff in the distance a little bit more, which is what I like. And also, it doesn't throw light as far. And that's good too, because it's one of those things where you don't have to really worry about casting too much light on your neighbor in some places, especially where I go camping and you have neighbors sometimes. Because trust me, I have lanterns that are propane powered, and I know that's a whole different thing, but when you open those up and set them up, they're huge and they're so bright, especially when you have like a North Star or like one of those Coleman, a big lantern, and they'll light up half the park I go to. So I don't need something that bright, and I figured this would be a good candidate because they're all small straw hat style LEDs, and you can get these in red. In fact, there's a pack of 100, and I showed this in the mailbag video. In fact, here's one of them here in a little tester, and there's 20 LEDs per panel here, and I'll go over some specs in just a moment. And I also mentioned that I would do some modifications to the actual case here. As you can see, yeah, it does close down, and you could flip these out of the way. But I actually thought originally it was in the package like this, and I thought it didn't fold down until I read it. And then I said it would actually make more sense to have it like this because it would kind of protect the plastic in here. And then I figured this one as it is takes AAA, or I should say 3 AA batteries, and that's 4.5 volts, and I believe it's actually being overrun here. Once we get into this, you'll see it's running like a series parallel kind of configuration, and there's no resistors or anything like that, so these are being run at the maximum voltage that these batteries will put out, and as they drop, they'll drop in brightness until they get to the point where the battery voltage is lower than what these can actually will need to go. But red actually has less of a voltage draw, so we can actually draw the battery voltage down, either A, draw it lower, or B, use one battery less because we don't need such a high voltage going into this. So there's different things going on here. So I might actually split this into 2 videos. The first part is going to be the LED part because that's going to take a lot of time, and then the second part is going to be possibly modding this case. I also said there's a possibility to spray this with Plastidip so it would give it a nice rubber texture. I might actually explore that, and if I do change batteries and go to 2, and I'll show this because I do have the screws out already, there's enough cavity space in here for maybe 2 D cells, if not for sure 2 C cell batteries, and that'll give definitely a lot longer of a run time, but you won't be able to collapse this down. So I'm gonna have to definitely figure that part out, but for now I'm gonna go ahead and take this entire thing apart, and just like that, it's apart. We're gonna go ahead here and now zoom into this panel so we can take a look at it. And I thought when I first looked at this in the initial review video that this was actually hooked up in a series parallel configuration, and it's not. It turns out these LEDs are all running in parallel. They're actually just hooked up in buses. So this is the positive bus and this is the negative bus, and you can see they're just connected like that in parallel along the bus. And then the 2 other panels are exactly like that, and then these wires just tap off of here and then run over to these other buses. So I guess it is technically series parallel, maybe, right? Because it's a parallel bus with another parallel bus hooked in series to it. Or is it a parallel? Whatever. The idea is we're just going to desolder all these and replace them in the exact orientation that they're in. It is confusing that they use the same color red wire here. And by the way, this is really an anemic kind of wire. I hooked this up to my power supply here using these alligator leads, and I initially had it set to run one LED at 3 volts 200, I should say 3 volts 20 milliamps, and it turned on, but it was very dim, and I ramped it up until the current limiting just switched off, and it was at 200 milliamps, just shy of that for the whole panel. And they were running a little bit warm, and that's white, but red's going to be at a lower voltage, so we'll have to see exactly what the maximum draw is going to be and perhaps calculate runtime. Oh, and by the way, yeah, this is just how this fit in there. But I will actually increase the wire size here, just because it's a little too thin for me. It's a really kind of anemic wire. I know it needed that for the flexibility, but if we're going to take that function out, we don't really need that. So I'm going to go ahead now and completely desolder all of this. Here's the bare panels with the wires removed. You can see I actually marked where the positive and negative buses are just to make it easy. And yeah, I did a bunch of them just in case they get rubbed off. There's another one just to be redundant. But now the process is just to remove these. They should just come straight out. I'll just end up probably heating up one pad and slightly bending it out and then heating up the other and just rocking them out and just continuing that the whole way down. And then I'll probably use one of these solder suckers to clean up the rest of the solder if needed. And we'll come back when those are all out. Well, there's one down, 2 to go. And there you have it. We have a nice big pile of LEDs and the 3 boards are all finished. I will mention that they did warp a tiny bit. I did try to mitigate that as much as possible by alternating the heat around the board as I undid all these. And it worked to an extent, but after all, it's just a small piece of perf board with just some tracks on it, so it's gonna bend. There's not a lot of thermal mass there. But anyway, it's not that bad. We can always straighten that out. Now, I wanted to mention the red LEDs we're going to put in here. I have some specs. Now, online, on the actual eBay listing, it just gave me the forward voltage of 2.5 to 3 volts, and I think that's a little high. Usually it's a little lower. But anyway, 100 of these, plus or minus 2%, was $7.74. That's US dollars. Free shipping from China. I'll put the link in the listing below, down in the description. Anyway, I went on another seller site, and this was their specs, and this made a little bit more sense to me. If this is the same thing, they run at 620 to 625 nanometers, and they have a 120-degree viewing angle with 300 to 400 millicandela luminosity. And if you actually calculate this, you need the angle and you need this. It's either 0.924 to 1.25 lumens. And a 100-watt light bulb here in the States is about 1700 lumens. And at 220 volts, it'd be 1300 lumens. And considering, I actually have it listed as 20 LED panel. It's actually 10 LEDs per panel. But anyway, this would be what 2 panels would be rated at. It would be anywhere between 6,000 to 8,000 millicandela, and that'd be 18.89, or I should say 18.849 to 25.13 lumens. So you can get an idea approximately how bright this could be if these numbers are indeed anywhere near correct. Of course, I don't have a lumen meter or anything like that, intensity meter or anything. So we're just going to go based on the numbers I can find. I didn't try the QR code or anything like this here, but there's not really anything on this bag. But anyway, now I know these two are quite different. Of course, the white has that phosphor on it and the red doesn't. And LEDs, if you don't really know already, the longer leads the positive and the shorter the negative. So when we put these in here, we're just basically going to line that up exactly like that. And we're just replacing these one for one, just like that. I might just put them in and lay them on the table and do it like that. I may even splay the ends outward like that. The thing is, these were not splayed. They were just put straight in, and then the leads were cropped. And of course, that's done in the manufacturing process. Since I'm doing this by hand, it's going to be easier to do that. So I will go ahead and do all that right now. Okay, all the LEDs are installed. I just ran my test leads across them real quick just to make sure everything's oriented correctly. Everything seems good to go. Now I'm just going to go ahead and solder them all in place. All right, here's one panel done. Yeah, it's not my best work, honestly, but given this was a desolder, resolder, and lead-free to leaded and the whole 9 yards and everything, it's not bad. And this is just a battery-operated lighting device, so it's not like it's mission critical anyway. Not a big deal. But you can see we just put some leads up to it just to verify that it is working. And now on to the other two. All three panels are now done, and it's time to put them back into the housing. I have the hot glue gun heating up because I think that's going to be the easiest way to reattach them. The heat stakes that I mentioned came off really easily. In fact, I just pushed the LEDs in from the back and the whole panel just popped right off. And I'm going to try to orient these so the wire connections at the bottom, like that, as you can see, they're down over here. And these actually almost kind of just press fit in like this. So that's actually pretty easy. And once I get them in place, I should be able to connect the short pieces of wire between the three. And maybe I could find a better way to engineer that as well. All right, and that's that. I got all the wires nicely organized in the back. There was a better way to do this instead of putting them directly on top of each other. You can see there's actually two sets of pads, one here and here, per rail, I'll call it. So I just went off of one to another, and then I just used the lower one to the lower one over here. And I went off the center one at the bottom over here at the lead-in. And right now this is actually set to run at 2.2 volts. It's drawing 1.9, and my power supply is actually current limiting, and it's drawing 92 milliamps. So I'm actually going to bump that up a little bit here and see if these actually get any brighter or not. Because after all, there are a lot of them here. They should be drawing a lot more amps than that, or milliamps. It's actually up to 157 milliamps right now, my little readout over here. And I can keep going, but they are getting pretty high in intensity. But ultimately, this is going to sit outward like that. And that's pretty cool so far. What I'm going to do is just throw this lantern together quickly. All right, and that's it. I don't have the battery box in the bottom because, like I said, we're going to do something different with the hardware, but I did want to see what it looked like. It looks pretty cool to me so far. And what I'm actually going to do now is just zoom out a little bit here and shut off the lights in the room, and just to see how much light this thing actually does throw. And I have to say, that is pretty good. There may be a way that I can actually set this to go into a blinking mode so we can use it as a strobe light perhaps, so it could be used in an emergency situation. So it would have a dual use. Because like I said, you know, some of the ones that do have white and red, the red ends up being a flashing only and doesn't have a solid. So this could be solid red, flashing red. That may be something in the hardware revision part, because I have to figure out exactly how to do that, of course. And I kind of want to leave this video at this point. As you can see from the rest of the room, it does throw light pretty well, of course, after the automatic camera light comes on, which I'll quickly disable. There we go. And that's the effect I was looking for. You can get the cameras going into a low level mode, which is perfect. This is what your eyes would do, and after a while you'll get used to this. And that's why they use it also in, well, dark rooms really, actually, because when you're developing film, the red light doesn't affect the film, and you can also see what the heck you're doing still. Anyway, with that, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'll put a link in the corner over here to get to the review video of this original lantern when I first got it in, and also a link in the top to subscribe to this channel if you're not already a subscriber. And thanks for watching.